everybody, I hope you've had a lovely weekend and all ready to go on our maths for this morning. So we're going to be looking at angles today, so moving on from turns, we're going to now start to think about different angles. So a quick recap, we looked at turns on last week and we were looking at a turn is to rotate about a point, so we had different types of turns. Can you have a quick think, what are those different types of turns that we looked at? Okay, you should have got whole turns, quarter turns, half turns and 3/4 turns, because those were the ones that we were looking at last week. And then we looked at whether these were anti-clockwise or clockwise, remembering that clockwise was moving right and anti-clockwise was moving left. So this was just to show the difference between comparing our turns, our clockwise and our anti-clockwise turns. So just a quick recap, obviously the clockwise ones all move to the right, whether that's whole, quarter, half or 3/4, and all the anti-clockwise move to the left, again which whole, quarter, half or 3/4 turns. So I now want you to have a think of the word angle. What do you think angle means? Have you heard it before? What do you think it could mean? So have a pause of the video, have a think about it, and then we'll have a look at some examples. So angles are where two lines or more meet at a point. So the circle ones show angles as two lines are meeting at a point. So you've got one line for the first one line is going down, one line is going across, and because they meet at a point, it shows that the angle is the part in the middle. So we're going to have a look at some more examples now. So to show an angle, we draw a curve. So we draw a curve to show where the angle could be. And this is just an example. So obviously this shows an angle because two lines are meeting at a point, and the angle is the part, the distance between the two lines. Now, we might also have come across something called a right angle. Now, a right angle is 90 degrees, which we touched on when we were looking at a quarter turn, because that was 90 degrees. So it looks like an L. So as you can see, these examples, they all look like L's. Now, it doesn't matter which way round it is, upside down, back to front, at a different angle, as long as they all show an L, it is a right angle. Now, a right angle is also, you can draw a square that fits in the gap where the two lines meet. So you can see that in each of these L's, each of these right angles, there is a square. So we show a curve if it's not a right angle, or if it is a right angle, we draw it as a square. We will be looking more at right angles in the next lessons coming up, but that's just an idea of what an angle is. So which of these are angles? So looking at the screen, can you find out or point to the ones which you think are the angles? So, and then on the next page we're going to go through and see, did you get them right? Remembering an angle is where two lines meet at a point, and it's the difference in the gap in the middle. So the circle ones are angles. So here are different angles that are having a go at looking at. So we can obviously see that a couple of them you might have thought straight away, yes, that's an angle because it's two lines meet at a joint. However, there are two which you might not have got. Now, the first one is the one at the top where I've labelled. So I've said here there are two lines because they're the same length lines, but they are still meeting. Even though it shows one flat line, it still is two lines that are meeting at a point. Now, obviously, when we looked at a half turn, that was two right angles. So obviously it does show that it is an angle. However, it does look like a straight line also. The second one was at the bottom. Now this one you can see actually has two angles because there is two lines that meet at a point on one side, and then on the other side another joins it. So you can see there that there are two angles. So some shapes might have more than one angle and others might have just one angle themselves. So you can find angles absolutely everywhere. So here are just a few examples of where you might see an angle. So we've got on the floor, on paving stones or on tiles. You might have it on your food, pizzas, even things, all sorts of different fruit all have angles, fruit and vegetables. On your hangers to hang your clothes up, we've got the angles in the middle of the triangle. And we've got on a football field or on a pitch, we can see the angles on the corners that make up to show where the outside is. So you might be able to have a look now and see, even just having a look around your room, where can you see angles? Well, you can see angles absolutely everywhere. So I'd like you just for the next a couple of minutes to walk around your house, and can you find different angles? You could take pictures of them, you could list them. Can you see where you can see angles? So anything it could be. So for example, I could pick up my whiteboard. I can see that on my whiteboard there are the angles running on the inside. I could look and I could find, for example, my folder. I've got an angle on my folder. I can see that on my glasses that there is an angle in the corner. So have a look around. Can you take some pictures? Can you either write some lists? Where have you seen the angles? Now, angles you can also find in the alphabet. So for example, the letter K, we can see that there are 3 angles because it's where 2 lines meet at a point, and this is where the angle would be. So I want you to have a go at doing this next task. So I'd like you, using capital letters because it makes it easier, to write your name. You could write your first name, your last name, you could even do your whole name if you wanted to. And I want you to find the different angles in your name. So you may be able to draw a square if it looks like an L, if it's in a right angle, or you can use an oval, just like I've done on here, to show where it isn't a right angle, but it is an angle. So for example, on the F, I've got 3 right angles. There aren't any on the I. On the R, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 angles. On the T, we've got 2 right angles, and on the H, we've got 4 right angles. So why don't you have a go now at writing your name in capital letters and see if you can find the angles in your name in the letters in your name. Then once you've had a go at doing that, I'd like you to have a go at looking at this. Now, this might take more than a lesson. You can spread it over a couple of lessons. That's absolutely fine. If you want to spend more on finding the angles in your house, that's absolutely fine. So once you've had a go at doing that, you can have a look at this sheet, which is on the Seesaw activities attached, which is all to do with turns and angles. So a recap of everything that we've done today and on the previous lesson. And then I'll go through the answers after. So having a look at the answers, which pictures show at least one angle? So you have to tick them. So we could obviously tick where they are on here. You could actually also say that the bottom right one has also got angles on as well, because it is still 2 lines meeting at a point. The arrows are being turned clockwise, so turn to the right. Match the picture to the turn. So if it's going from facing upwards to turning to the right, we know that will be a quarter. If it's been up and it's turned clockwise and still is facing up, we know that will be a full turn or a whole turn. If it is now facing as if it's gone all the way around to face the green arrow the other way, obviously that's 3/4. And if it is flipped upside down, we know that that will be half a turn. So here is a compass. Now a compass is just something we use to show directions with. So north, east, south and west. One way to remember is, I know we've got lots of different ones we've discussed in class, but I've always used never eat shredded wheat to remember where the order of which north, east, south and west face. So Aisha is facing north. So if you point to the north first, she turns a quarter turn clockwise. So if you turn clockwise, so go to the right for a quarter turn, she would now be facing east. This time Tommy is facing north. He turns a quarter turn anti-clockwise, so turns left and he is now facing west. This time Annie is facing east. She turns 3/4 turn clockwise, so put your finger on east, move 3/4 clockwise, so it should go on to the south, to the west and back up to the north, and that would be 3/4. Okay, number 4, Mo and Eva are answering a question. Mr. Lee is facing west, so use the compass again. He turns half a turn. What direction is he facing now? Mo says, I cannot answer this because we don't know what direction he turns in. Whereas Eva says, it does not matter about the direction. Who do you agree with? So Mo is correct that we don't know which direction he's turning in. However, Eva is actually correct because it doesn't matter if it's half a turn, it's whether you turn clockwise or anti-clockwise, you will still be facing the same way because it is turning half a turn rather than a quarter or 3/4. Okay, number 5, Esther and Brett are showing what time it will be a quarter of Esther and Brett are showing what time it will be in a quarter of an hour. Here is the time now. Here are their answers. Who is correct? So if you actually have a look at the times, now Brett is correct because remember, if it is on a clock, it only moves clockwise. So it would move 3 numbers to the right, a quarter of the turn to the right. So Brett is correct. However, Esther has moved it a quarter anti-clockwise, but obviously we know a clock doesn't move anti-clockwise, it only moves clockwise. Okay, draw hands on the clock to show the new times. So this, I want it half an hour later. So using your minute hand, you need to move it to half an hour. Now a trick here is that the clock has 12 numbers on it. So if it is turning half, it would move 6 numbers. Whereas if it moves a quarter, it would move 3 numbers because 3 is half of 6. So the time should be 3:45, so your minute hand should be at the 9, the hour hand should be nearly at the 4, and then for part B, if it's quarter of an hour later, it's moved a quarter way round, it's moved 3 numbers, so your minute hand should be pointed to the 9, and your hour hand should be pointing somewhere between 5 and 6, but nearer to the 6. Part C, 3/4 of an hour later. So again, we want to move it now. If it's 3/4, if 1/4 is 3 numbers, 2/4 or a half is 6 numbers, 3/4 would be 9 numbers. So we can move it. Our minute hand 9 numbers around the clock, so it will be facing the 6, and the hour hand would now be facing as if it is trying to get to the 10 because it's 9:30. It will be in the middle of 9 and 10. And finally, part D, half an hour later. Again, we can just move it 6 numbers. Because obviously 6 is half of 12, so our minute hand should be pointed to the 8 and our hour hand should be on its way to the 12. Number 7, a figure skater is facing the direction shown. She turns a quarter clockwise and then 3/4 turn clockwise. Draw on the picture to show that she ends up facing the same way as she started. So you should have drawn a quarter turn or using the arrow first, and then 3/4 turn using the arrows after. Now you must do it this way to show the turns and also to show it in the correct direction. What other turns could she make and still be facing up the same way? So you could have had lots of different, you could have had a half and a half, you could have had 3/4 and a quarter, you could have had a whole turn. So you could have come up with different ways. You could have had more than just a turn. You could have had 1 turn, 1/4 and 3/4 turn clockwise. So you can have lots of different ideas for that one. So I'd love to see your answer. If you can put them on the seesaw, that'd be great, and then I can have a look to see how we've all got on with that.